Alright, so now that we have our interface all set, now we're going to move to JavaScript. And the first thing we want to do is we want to create a database using HTML5 web storage. And we can actually run SQL on the database. It's basically a local database that's stored in your browser. Alright, so go ahead and open up. Might as well open up all the files we have, the index. Actually, the CSS we don't need. That's pretty much complete. So just the index and then the script.js file. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do here is we're going to set a variable called db, and we're going to start out with it as null. And then what we want to do is open up a database using the web storage API. Alright, so I'm going to put an if statement here, an if else, and we're going to say if window dot open database. Alright, so we're checking for web storage capability in the browser. Alright, so if window dot open database, then we're going to set that db variable equal to open database, and that'll be the main object that we'll use for database queries. And inside of the open database function, it takes 4 parameters. Alright, so the first parameter is going to be the database name. Okay, so we're going to call this note test, and the second parameter is the version. Okay, we'll say 1.0. And the third parameter is basically just like a human-friendly name. We'll just call it Sticky's database. And then finally, we want the estimated size of the database. And of course, it's just an estimate. You don't know exactly how big it'll be, but I'm just going to put in 10 megabytes. And this is actually in bytes, so we want to say 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Alright, so that should be 10 megabytes. Alright, now we're just going to do a check to make sure that db gets set. So we'll say if not db. If not db, then we're just going to send an alert. Okay, so basically we'll just say failed to open database. Alright, so in this else block, we're just going to set an alert as well. So alert, and this one we'll just write the same thing, failed to open database. Alright, and actually with this one, let's say failed to open database, make sure your browser supports let's say HTML5 web storage. Okay, so let's save that. Alright, now let's go ahead and reload the index page, and I'm going to press F12 for Chrome tools. And if you click on the resources tab and we look over here to the left, you can see we have an option to view the web SQL. So if we click the arrow, you can see our database note test is there. Now there's nothing in there, we haven't created any kind of columns or tables or anything like that, but the database is there. Alright, and it'll stay there even if, let's go ahead and exit out and go back in and check it out again. Go to resources, web SQL, and it's still there. Alright, so if you're using Chrome and you exit out and go back in and you don't see this, then you need to just change your content settings. And to do that, you want to just go to settings, show advanced settings, content settings, and if it's disappearing on you, then you probably have one of these checked. Alright, you want to make sure that you allow local data to be set. Alright, this option is sometimes selected to keep it until the browser closes. Alright, so I mean, if that's how you want this to work, then that's fine, but if you want it to stay there even after the browser closes, you want to make sure you have this one checked. Alright, so now we need to create a note object. Alright, or create the function that creates the note object, and this is going to be called a constructor function. And basically all that is it's a function that'll run when you create a new note object or when you instantiate the object. Okay, so we're going to say function note. Alright, and since this is an object constructor, the convention is to use capitals at the beginning of the function name. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is create a variable called self. Alright, and we're going to equal this to this. So what this means is that whenever we use this self variable, we're referring to the note object. Okay, we're referring to itself. And if you have any experience in other programming languages, then this shouldn't be too hard to understand. Next, we're going to create a variable called note, and we're going to set that to document dot create element. Alright, so a note is going to create an element, and we're going to create a div tag. Alright, so we want to say div. Alright, now we want to take that variable note, and we're going to say note dot class name is equal to note. Alright, so every note that's created, we want to create a div with the class of note. And what we want to do is create a few event listeners. Alright, so JavaScript events are click, load, mouse down, mouse over, things like that. Alright, so we're going to say note dot add event listener. Alright, and the event that we want to listen for is the mouse down. Alright, so mouse down, and then the second parameter is going to be a function, and this function can take an event parameter, so we'll call that E, and we're going to return self dot on mouse down. Alright, now this on mouse down is going to be a function that we create, so it doesn't exist yet. Okay, so return on mouse down, and actually, yeah, that's good. Alright, and then the next parameter. Alright, so we have the event, the function. Alright, so after the function, we're going to create another parameter, and we're going to pass in false. And the false basically is a use capture, which indicates that the user wants to initiate capture, and we don't really have to worry about that. We're just going to say false. Alright, so next we want to add another event listener, so we're going to say note dot add event listener. Alright, so in here, this is going to be a click. Okay, so click, and same thing, second parameter is going to be a function, pass in the event. Alright, and in this one, we're going to return self dot on note click. Okay, on note click, fix that L, and then we're also going to pass in false. I should probably separate these a little bit, make it easier to read. And actually, we don't need to pass in the event parameter here. Alright, so now we want to the note variable. We want that to, we want this note equals note. Alright, so this keyword, again, it refers to the object, and the object is this function creates the object. Okay, so it's just a property of the object. Alright, so now we want to move to the close button. Alright, we're going to stay in this function and create a variable called close, and we're going to set that. We're going to create another element. So document dot create element, and the element we want to create is a div. Alright, and then we'll say close dot class name, and we're going to set that to close button. Alright, so the close button will have a class called close button. And same thing, we're going to add an event listener. I'm just going to copy this one. Alright, so we're going to change this note to close, and the event is going to be a click. Alright, so click, and we will pass in the event parameter. We're going to return self dot close. Alright, and that's good. We want false for the capture. Alright, and then we just want to say note dot append child, so we're going to add this. Actually, close. Alright, so we're going to add that to the note as a child div. So basically we're constructing the actual physical note in this function. Alright, so we're not done yet. Now we want to create a variable called edit and set that. We're going to create another div, so create element,